Hi and welcome to Chef Class Patisserie. I'm Chef John.
And I'm Corey Sangola.
So today we're making cookies. We're making beautiful, beautiful, delicious all butter cookies. We're going to be using a technique called the creaming method to make 4 different types for you today. So to get going, we've already got our bowl set up right over here. Corey, what do you have in here?
So right in the bowl we have our butter and our white sugar and our brown sugar.
Okay, so we're using, to start off with butter, white sugar, brown sugar. We're going to cream them together, right? Is there a reason that we're using 2 types of sugar?
Flavor.
Just flavor, right?
Yes.
So you could use white, you could use brown, but together they really make something special. Excellent. All right, so can you take us through this, please?
Sure, so I'm just gonna bring this down. Pop this sucker out.
Okay.
And turn around slowly,
Right.
slowly, so don't...
You don't want it to explode?
No.
Excellent. So we made sure that the butter was at room temperature, right? So it's a little bit soft. If your butter's coming out of the fridge and you have a large machine like this, that's fine. Make sure it chops up a little bit so it's not in a huge block. You definitely don't want to break the machine. So butter can be really, really hard. As it's mixing again and they get incorporated nicely, Corey will pick up the speed you just saw, just to make sure it's fluffy. The idea of creaming again is to aerate the whole product. So we're using the moisture in the butter to kind of help moisten up and lubricate the sugar, get it nice and fluffy, and it's going to make for a super, super smooth cookie.
It seems to be a big chunk, so...
Yeah, so we'll just let it keep going for a little bit. Now let's stop just for a second actually, and let's on the show. So if you have this happen right here, and you can see that what we've got is we've got our paddle with a chunk of butter in it. Just stop, pop it out. Again, you can break it up just using your fingers if you want to, right? If you have it warm or room temperature, excuse me, or it's cut up, you won't really run into that issue in the first place. And then back up. There we go, and we'll let it mix again. Awesome. So while that's mixing, let's talk about the rest of the ingredients we have here.
The chef.
So for flavor, we're adding vanilla.
Yep.
And we're using a really good vanilla. It can be a dark vanilla, that's totally up to you. We're using a pure white vanilla to give us, again, flavor without darkening the color too much. Vanillas like Dominican vanilla or equatorial vanillas have almost a cinnamony flavor to them. They're very lovely to throw in your cookie, give it some uniqueness. You have some egg?
Yep.
And we're using whole egg?
Yes.
We like whole egg, of course, because egg yolk carries lecithin. Lecithin's an emulsifier, and it helps blend and bind everything together. Now, what do we got here?
We've got our baking soda,
Okay,
our salt,
right?
our flour.
Pastry flour. So pastry flour is sifted always. It has a bit of a higher moisture content, and it's going to be lumpy. If you don't sift your pastry flour, you can actually end up with cookies that have lumps of flour in them, and we don't want that either. Now we're using soda, not powder, because we already have enough acid in the mixture, which will activate the soda's ability to create CO2. And we only want just a little bit of fluffiness. The soda will help with that, okay? So we're gonna take our sifted flour, throw the soda in, and throw the salt right in. Beautiful, there we go. And when we're creamed enough, this will be nice and smooth. So we're just gonna turn it up just a little bit, it's almost there. So I think now we'll turn it down a bit, and we're ready to go with the vanilla.
The chef. Okay.
There we go. Just a little bit. It's just going to give it a light flavor, very nice. And I think we can start going slowly with the eggs as well. Yeah.
Add it in 2 to 3 stages.
Right. Okay, so you can take the egg and you can mix it up like Corey did, or you can just crack it and add in 1 egg at a time. That'll work as well. And you'll notice right away that what happens is the creamed butter separates from the side of the bowl as soon as we add moisture. That's fine. Don't add more moisture until it comes back to the outside of the bowl. That's when you know when you're ready to add more. So I add an egg, it pulls away, that's fine. I wait until it reattaches, and I'm ready for my next egg. That's starting to look beautiful, isn't it?
Yes, chef.
Yeah. There we go, ready for the last one.
In she goes.
Fantastic.
Chef.
Now again, take your time. You don't have to rush this. Once it's mixed, it's fluffy, it's light. Even at this point, because we don't have that much egg in here, we could turn the speed up a little bit and give it a good blast if we wanted to, just to make sure it's nice and fluffy. The more fluffy it is right now, the fluffier your finished product will be. Excellent. Let's stop that now. So I would just like to show everybody how nice and light this whole mixture looks. Look at that. Okay. So really nice, light, fluffy. You did a great job.
Thank you, Chef.
Okay. So what's next?
Now we're gonna take it out, put it in the bowl, add the flour.
So let's take this off first. There we go. Okay, so we're adding pastry flour. The reason we're using pastry flour is because it has a low protein content. Pastry flour has about 8% protein. All-purpose flour has about 12. Bread flour has about 16. What that means is the more wheat protein, the more gluten there is. The more gluten there is, the more chewy or tough it is. So the difference between a bagel, which is made with 18% to 20% protein, and a cake, which is made with about 6 to 8% protein. One's very chewy, one's nice and fluffy. So we want our cookie to be delicate, to be fluffy, so we're going to use pastry flour. A lot of times you'll see things that are a mix of pastry flour and all-purpose flour, which is going to give you somewhere, again, in that 9 to 10% range. So that looks great. Make sure we get it all. We also like to mix this by hand. You can do the whole thing in the bowl, that's fine. There's lots of butter. It's going to kind of lubricate everything and make it lovely. You can also mix it by hand. Mixing it by hand means I'm not going to overmix it, especially if I'm using all-purpose flour. So it just kind of gives you a little bit more control.
You also add a little bit more love to it.
There you go, fantastic. So we'll leave this actually right here. So you want to throw those in and show us what we're going to do? So again, typically we would do this in the machine. We just want to show you the mix. So Corey, of course, has nice clean hands. You can wear gloves if you want to. You could use a spatula if you want to, or the whole thing can go in the bowl. We're just doing this so you can see the mixing procedure. Okay, if you want to give your hands a quick wash, I'll finish up here.
Yes, Chef.
Brilliant, thank you. There we go, okay. So what we want to do now is we want to make sure that we've got the chocolate chips in. You can use a variety of different chocolate chips, and there's huge differences in quality. If you're going to use just a basic chocolate chip, like the bag of chocolate chips you can get at the grocery store, that's fine. They're made to melt at a certain temperature. They taste quite lovely. You can choose as well to use a much better product like a couverture. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to use a Belgian couverture today. So this is called a chocolate callet, C-A-L-L-E-T. And you can see right here, they look very much like chips. They look like nice large chips, okay? But it's actually a very high quality Belgian chocolate. So we're just gonna throw that in. I'm gonna ask Corey to finish this off with his fingers again and just get this nicely incorporated. There you go, sir. Yeah, and we want to make sure again that the chocolate doesn't melt ahead of time. If the chocolate melts ahead of time, if we're too rough with it, if our hands are hot, if the room is hot, then what you get is chocolate streaks through the cookie, which is fine, but it's not necessarily a chocolate chip anymore. You can make a great chocolate cookie using cocoa with chocolate chips. You can streak it through, you can do all these things, but a chocolate chip cookie is a white cookie with chocolate chips, and that's what we're shooting for today. So nice and delicate. And really all you're doing is you're mixing it until you don't see any dry white flour anymore. This whole thing can be done just in the bowl, just letting it mix. This way you get to see it a little bit better. Okay, that looks phenomenal.
Okay.
So we'll scrape down. So a very simple way then of finishing these, and I really don't want to do too much with this. I like keeping them simple, is I take an ice cream scoop and I just run it completely flat and I pop them onto a sheet pan. And what do you have next?
Now we have our cinnamon dough.
Okay, so this mixture already has been whipped, creamed, and what was in here?
We had our brown sugar,
Yeah.
our white sugar,
Yep, it's butter.
butter,
We added a little bit of milk.
and a little
To
bit
it?
of cinnamon.
Yeah, and some egg. And so the whole thing blended together, and you can see this mixture again, nice and light and fluffy, okay? Really beautiful, and it has a nice rich cinnamon flavor to it. So we chose, again, excellent quality ingredients. Please remember that if you have meh ingredients, you get a meh cookie, right? Every time. If you have beautiful quality stuff, so we chose an excellent cinnamon. We have a Padang cinnamon in here. So the cinnamon is rich and robust and beautiful. We made sure we had a really good quality product. it makes the difference. And when you're eating it, you're gonna say, wow, I'm not sure what's different about this, but it's
definitely feel it.
Awesome, exactly. So again, you can do this whole thing in a bowl, just mixing, let it whip, add your ingredients, and right at the end, you add in your flour just to come together. We wanted to show you how we put this together. So Corey's gonna get messy hands again.
Yeah.
There we go. And we're using pastry flour again. Another quality that pastry flour has is it's bleached. So it's actually incredibly white. All-purpose flour, bread flour, they're creamy. It's just fantastic, but it doesn't make that pale white cookie. Now you can see again, look at the consistency of that. That's great, thanks. Look at the consistency that we have here. Look how smooth and fluffy that actually is. That's so beautiful, right? That's what we're looking for. When we're done, we're gonna do this just a little bit differently this time. So I'm gonna grab, again, small ice cream scoop. I'm gonna pull it like that, and I'm gonna drop it into cinnamon sugar. Okay, you can decide how cinnamony you want this to be. So more or less, right? And very delicately, I'm just gonna roll them around in the cinnamon sugar. I pick them up, and I lay them on my tray. All right, so we have our trays ready to go. And let's take a look at what we've got. Again, remember that when you're baking them off, you want to space them. So we have two different sizes. This is a chocolate chip cookie fit for royalty. This is fit for royalty as well, but the junior royalty, you'll have to have two just to make up for this one. Yeah. So again, spacing is really important. They've got room to grow, right? I can fit 25 of these cookies on the tray, but I'd have one cookie at the end. These are all going to spread a bit. This is a little bit smaller. So again, room to grow, really important. All right, we're ready to take things over to the oven, so let's do that right now. So, here we go. And they are.
There you are.
Thank you. Okay, so about 350 degrees, 10-ish minutes, depending upon the size that you're baking. Still want them to be a little bit soft when they're done. You know what? We got a great chef tip for you. Why don't we have a look, take a little break, and when we get back, peanut butter and snickerdoodles. You really don't want to miss that. See you in a minute. Hey, and welcome to Chef Tips. Okay, I'm going to show you how easy it is to make a pastry cream, to make a pudding. So this is milk, can be cream. It's got some vanilla and it's got some sugar in it. Right here I have my egg yolk, some cornstarch, and a little bit more milk. And just dump it straight in. Now what I'm going to do is keep the heat right up on high, and I'm going to keep stirring it. And as soon as it comes back to a boil, it's going to thicken for me. Okay, you can see it's coming back to a boil right now, so that usually happens pretty quickly. And look how it's thickening up so lovely. It's bubbling, it's beautiful. If I want it thicker, a little bit more cornstarch. If I want it thinner, a little less cornstarch. But I didn't even have to temper this. And when it's done, take a look what I've got. I have this absolutely beautiful thickened pudding. Look at that. You could make this at home. Welcome back to Chef Class Patisserie. All right, we promised you peanut butter and snickerdoodles, so we're ready to go. Corey, you have already the egg, sugar, butter creamed, or is it just the butter and sugar?
Everything.
Okay, so butter, sugar, here we are. Take a look again, nice and fluffy, nice and light. So it's already ready to go. We'll fire that back in. Yeah, we'll lift up and we'll start mixing. Beautiful, here we go. So the machine goes on again.
Maybe not.
That's great. In goes our vanilla, just like we did. Right, we have our egg here. So egg in sections. There's one. And again, they're really great. So same thing, remember what we did earlier? I let it mix, right? When it comes away from the bowl, I don't add anything until it joins back up again and it's ready for the next blast. So that's looking pretty good. Awesome. Peanut butter cookies. And I realize so many people have nut allergies, and you got to be really careful when you're making them and serving them and giving them to your friends and guests. But I just love peanut butter. So, okay, let's just move that around so we can put the peanut butter in. There we go. And scrape that in. All at once. Don't have to play around, just mix it right in.
Sticking to.
Perfect. That looks good. Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
So we'll mix that in. I'll grab that from you. Okay. So what we want to do then is we're going to scrape the whole thing down. So in, scrape your sides, make sure it's mixed nicely. Again, the flour will look after that to a large degree. There you go, and a little bit more. So fluffy and light, right?
Yes, sure.
Now again, peanut butter has a lot of acids. That's just the way it is. So instead of using baking powder, we'll use baking soda. Almost every peanut butter recipe, it's the same thing. So baking soda is activated by acid in the batter, creates CO2 gas, makes everything nice and light and fluffy. So we're just going to take our sifted soda and add it to our flour. Okay, now, fluffy, always fluffy. Look how beautiful this mixture is.
Lovely.
Yeah, so let's lower that down so everybody gets a chance to see it again. There we go. We'll lift it out and look how unbelievably fluffy and beautiful and light that is. That's wonderful. And that's what you're looking for. You want nothing less than that. All right. And the last bit is the flour.
Flour.
So flour goes in, and we're going to go really, really slow with this. Okay, so we'll add in a little bit, allow it to turn a couple of times. No, lift it up first, please. There we go. So super slow, we don't want to make a mess. Okay, but if you're adding the flour in segments, make sure you don't overmix it. If you overmix it, remember the gluten thing? You'll build gluten. So you can see right now, I'm going to stop already. I am not developing gluten. Okay, we'll lower that now, please. And then the last bit goes in. There we go. And the same thing again, nice and slow, very slow, take your time. Yeah, just. That's good. It's going to give us a little bit of a puff. There we go. I'll make a little bit of a mess. You can see how it's pulling everything off the side of the bowl. We're going to give it a little bit of a mix in a second. And give it one little blast. And we're done. So thoroughly mixed. We'll drop that down. We'll take off our paddle. Up it goes. We're going to scrape everything off because we don't want to miss a cookie.
No, we do not.
Classical, but it's kind of cool. I like it. I take a little bit of icing sugar and put it on the back of a fork, and I'm just going to press in. Now everybody's seen that before, but the icing sugar really helps so you don't get sticking. And you can see the icing sugar will melt right away. And I love this look. So you can do that, and you can crosshatch if you want. And again, the icing sugar prevents sticking. Look how nice that looks. So when these bake, they're going to bake down, they're going to bake out, they're going to look fantastic. This presso is just a snickerdoodles. Snickerdoodles are light, they're fluffy. Again, it's almost like a shortbread. It's a lovely, lovely cookie. What we did here is we took a lot of butter and some sugar, no brown sugar, just regular granulated sugar, whipped it up, add some egg. Do you remember what that was called? Creaming. So we creamed our sugar and our butter and our eggs together. Here they are. We added a little bit of vanilla for flavor, and again, a really good quality vanilla is super important. Super important. And once again, in goes our flour. So the flour's been sifted. This time we're working with a mix of pastry flour and all-purpose flour. And it's going to give us a little bit more structure, but because there's as much butter as there is, it's going to stay very nice and light and fluffy. And again, this is almost like a shortbread. It's a totally lovely cookie.
Jeff, where would you like me to put these?
So we'll just drop them over. All right. Same thing. These can be made very easily in the machine, but we'll show you how to put them together. It's interesting, because of the amount of butter, these are going to grab a lot faster than you saw with the chocolate chip, right? Or with the cinnamon cookie. These literally just kind of grab and become a dough almost instantly. I like mixing by hand. I can tell where the raw flour is. I can tell where, you know, it's mixed more, it's mixed less, and it gives me the option of really being smooth with everything. And it's done. I've got it. There's no raw flour anywhere. And the interesting thing with these ones, there we go, is that I'm not going to scoop them. With these ones, I'm going to roll them out. So let me just go icing sugar. So I'm just going to take a little bit of icing sugar and I'm going to drop it down. Don't need much. And then I'm going to take a little bit of my cookie dough and lay it on top. I'm not using flour. If I have flour, I'm going to toughen up the dough. Icing sugar will do the trick. And all I do now is I just roll it nice and gentle. Okay, you use the same technique when you're doing shortbreads. Don't use flour, use a little icing sugar. Look at that. And I get a beautiful roll. That is going to go in the fridge. It's going to firm up. All that butter is going to want to set up for me. So we'll just put that aside for a second. I happen to have a couple made, and I'm going to show you how to cut them. So, would you take to the side, please?
Right.
Thank you. So we made this earlier. So I've got to decide how big I want them. And I'm looking for about the same size as the peanut butter, but you could decide to make them bigger or smaller. They spread out quite a bit. Again, they're made with table sugar. If you were to have shortbreads like this, they'd be made with icing sugar generally. And because of that, you'd be able to sit these on a tray and they pretty much wouldn't move. The granules of icing sugar are so much smaller than the granules of sucrose, of table sugar, that it doesn't allow for a lot of spread. These will start like this and will actually grow out to be considerably larger. So what Corey and I are going to do is we're going to take these and we're just going to roll them in our hands to form balls. And we're going to throw them again into our cinnamon sugar mixture. Butter, snickerdoodles. They're going to go in the oven again, about 350, depending upon the size, 10 to 12 minutes. They're going to bake, they're going to be beautiful, they're going to be dreamy, they're going to be creamy. I'm really looking forward to eating some. Why don't we take a little break? We're going to come back and we're going to do exactly that. Hey, we got cookies. Take a look at this. Look how beautiful they are. Chocolate chip, snickerdoodles, cinnamon, and peanut butter on the end. So I want to present these again just to make sure that my guests have something a little bit special. So I got some more of that wonderful Belgian couverture, and I'm just melted a little bit, very, very light. With good chocolate, don't make it too hot. And I'm just going to splash it around and get a bit of a funky look.
Modern art.
Yeah, just something a little bit unique, right? I don't want to get too crazy, but look at that. That looks pretty. Okay, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to put my chocolate chip right up in here. And typically you could allow this to set if you wanted to. But I'll just do my chocolate chip around. Kind of like that. And then next to it, and again, it really depends if you want to have peanut butter on the same tray. You can if you want to. You don't have to if you don't. Right, there we are. A couple of snickerdoodles, boom. We've got some cinnamon cookies right here that we're going to just have right in front, like that. We're going to finish the whole thing off with a couple of peanut butter cookies on the end as well. A little bit of icing sugar around.
Oh, my mouth watering already.
Not bad. Hey, why don't you try a snickerdoodle? Tell me what you think.
Oh, sounds good.
How is
Light, fluffy.
Really light, really fluffy? Fantastic. Then we hit our mark. That's exactly what we were looking for. Good stuff. All right, so you can see a lot of cookies. Using creaming method, you can really get something beautiful. Nice and clean and tidy and organized, and oh, absolutely love it. So that's our show for today. You know what? If you go to loyalisttv.com, you're going to find all of our past episodes. You're going to find recipes. It's an amazing site. It's set up by the Television and New Media program here at Loyalist College. They're doing a crazy good job. You should take a look if you're interested in TV production.
And don't forget that we actually have Resto 213 open Thursdays and Fridays for lunch and dinner.
That's right. Student-run dining room at Loyalist College. The food is incredible. You got to come down and try us out. So thank you so much for joining us this week at Chef Class Patisserie, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.